into the night with national and local favorites. Details at jacksonvillefair.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and on today's First Coast Connect, it's the biggest stories of the week. JTA boosts ridership by enlisting its own employees to hop on board. Locals respond to help those shut out by the government shutdown. A Trump plan to expand Atlantic oil drilling is walked back after instant backlash. And Duval County School Superintendent pushes back on recent charter school expansion. We talk about all that and more with our panel of journalists on our Friday Week in Review. Later, from dirt roads and citrus groves to modern-day Mandarin, the Garden Club celebrates 80 years of beautification. You can join the conversation on air by calling us at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The federal government shutdown is now 38 days old, the longest in U.S. history. It's interrupted federal funding for the nutrition program known as SNAP. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to fully fund the SNAP program this month. The Trump administration has appealed this ruling. The shutdown is starting to affect air travel across the country. The Federal Aviation Administration is gradually reducing air traffic by up to 10%, largely due to staffing shortages. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports this could lead to longer waits.
United and Delta Airlines are both allowing travelers to rebook flights without penalty, hoping to ease frustration if delays or cancellations spread. Aviation experts warn that even minor staffing gaps can ripple across the national air system, affecting everything from flight paths to baggage handling. Travel analysts say morning departures are generally less likely to be disrupted since delays tend to build later in the day. For now, airlines are urging passengers to plan ahead, arrive early, and keep a close eye on their flight status. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
Typically, the Labor Department releases its jobs reports today, but it won't because of the shutdown. A major outplacement firm is warning that last month was the worst October for job layoff notices in more than 20 years. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the U.S. military has attacked another boat in the Caribbean Sea. 3 people were killed. Writing online last night, Hegseth alleged the boat was involved in drug trafficking, but he offered no evidence of his claim. President Trump says that Kazakhstan will join the Abraham Accords. These normalized diplomatic ties between Israel and several Muslim countries during Trump's first term in the White House. But NPR's Franco Ordonez reports Kazakhstan already has full diplomatic ties with Israel.
The president declared the move as a major step toward building bridges across the world. At a dinner with Central Asian leaders, including Kazakhstan, Trump boasted that the administration is negotiating with other foreign leaders about joining.
The Abraham Accords are very sought after right now. We're going to be announcing some very important countries that are joining.
It's a largely symbolic move. The White House described it as a signal that the accords are alive and well in the second administration. Regional concerns over the war in Gaza has been a major impediment to attracting more signers to the agreement, including Saudi Arabia. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik says she'll run for governor of New York. Stefanik announced the news this morning by criticizing incumbent Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul as the worst governor in the country. Hochul returned the criticism and said, quote, "Bring it on." You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News, 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. The next park to pop up on downtown Jacksonville's riverfront is one step closer to being built after residents saw near final plans last night for the Shipyard's West Park. Dozens of people gave feedback on the 10-acre riverfront park that has been under design for a few years, which will be between the USS Orlick and Hogan's Creek on East Bay Street. The city's Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Director Daryl Joseph says groundbreaking on the first phase is expected sometime next year.
First phase of it will be the actual event building, which have a cafe, restrooms, so really the park building, the open green space, extending out the Riverwalk. And then we actually have the other park amenities that will be associated with that. And our goal for that phase of work to be complete by 2028, by the end of 2028.
The park will occupy what was once a major shipyard complex that closed in 1992 and was then the subject of failed proposals to develop it until the current proposal was floated. After the county's planning and zoning agency denied a recommendation, St. Johns County commissioners this week denied a request to build 205 single-family homes off County Road 214. Dozens of area residents spoke out against the community that was going to be called Tucoy River Estates, citing traffic concerns, limited access to emergency services, draining issues, and incompatibility with surrounding farmland. That according to news partners at the Jacksonville Daily Record. According to the application, about 90% of the land would have remained for agricultural uses. Locally, warm temperatures this afternoon.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include EBSCO, committed to providing colleges and universities with relevant online research databases to ensure student, faculty, and staff success. Learn more at ebsco.com. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. And it's Friday, which means it's time for our First Coast Week in Review. Among our topics, city lawmakers pressure JTA over concerns about cost and ridership on its new shuttle system. A coalition of nonprofits, faith leaders, and city officials tries to stitch together a safety net after federal benefits end. Republicans pressure the Trump administration to dial back plans to reopen offshore oil drilling, and school officials urge legislators to rethink a broad expansion of charter schools. Here to talk about all that and more, I am joined by Emily Turner, Action News Jax anchor and investigative reporter. Hey, Emily.
Hi.
Nikesha Williams, author and producer of the Black and Published podcast. Good morning, Nikesha.
Good morning.
We are joined also by Mike Mendenhall, City Hall reporter and associate editor at Jacksonville Today. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Ann. How are you?
Great. And David Bauerlein, Metro reporter at the Florida Times-Union. David, thanks for being here.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Emily, I'm going to have to start with you since you've been reporting on this for now more than a year.
The understatement of the century. Yeah.
JTA has been your on-air baby, and you've reported for a while now on the cost of this autonomous vehicle system, cost overruns, whether the vision is even achievable with this so far $66 million project. But most recently, you raised questions about whether the authority may be trying to juice its ridership numbers.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask them, the answer is no. We are not boosting our riders with our own people. But the premise of this, I found, starts with an internal email. And the internal email is sent to a bunch of JTA employees that says, quote, please sign up to ride the Navi today and beyond. We are in dire need of riders, frowny face emoji. That's what the email says. So I think that speaks for itself.
We're in dire need of riders.
Quote, we are in dire need of riders. And at this time, the Navi was still free, right? So you could just hop on it if you wanted to. And so they were like, sign up on our SharePoint calendar. So I requested the SharePoint calendar, and I found that more than 50 employees who were, working at this time, paid at their normal salary, signed up for 2.5-hour shifts to ride the Navi. So all of these employees, more than 50 employees, spent total 840 paid hours riding the Navi. And those ambassadors, as they're called, counted toward their ridership numbers.
You calculated basically how much was spent to pay these employees to ride the Navi for 2.5 hours at a time.
Yeah, I mean, there are more than 50 employees. I didn't request all of their salaries to do the breakdown. I just picked one gentleman who he was very prolific. I think he did like 19 shifts. The equivalent, he spent a 40-hour work week, one guy, and the taxpayers paid him for a full 40-hour work week to ride the Navy and not do his actual job, which had to do with making sure that the connection, the like paratransit, was running. Instead, he was on the Navy.
So you requested this SharePoint calendar. Interestingly, you found that the calendar stopped the day that you made your request. So whatever was in motion there effectively ended when you learned about it.
Right. And this is a trend that I've seen throughout my coverage of JTA. Again, 2 years more than, I don't even know, like 60 plus public records requests is they'll be operating they'll be doing something, or they'll be spending money at a certain level. I make a public records request, and then they'll never publicly say it. Like, my name doesn't come out of their mouth. But then suddenly a bunch of people don't have a purchase card or a corporate card, or they're spending on lunches being brought in suddenly changes. Or, I don't know, the SharePoint calendar where people sign up to ride the thing suddenly ends.
The value of investigative reporting there. David Bauerlein, you also spent a fair amount of time riding the Navy for our benefit as a reporter back when it was making the transition from a free to a paid ride system. So, the city this week, in no small part because of the work that Emily has been doing, but also because of this DOGE committee that they've created, which is designed to look at excessive spending, wasteful spending, waste, fraud, and abuse, decided that they wanted to get some answers about this as well.
Yeah, it's actually a very good meeting they had. They asked a lot of good questions and put Matt Ford, the CEO of the Jacksonville Transportation Authority, on what they call the hot seat. He answered the questions. I'm sure there's going to be some follow-up meetings on it. The real issue is that what the next big decision point is going to be is that they're doing a more detailed study of converting the Skyway system downtown so it can be part of this rubber-tired transit shuttles. And right now, the estimated cost is $240 million. It surely will cost more than that. I mean, this was figures that were devised 5 or 6 years ago. And so then you can have a decision point. Is it still worth the cost benefit? And that's where I think the DOGE committee will continue to look at it. And the DOGE committee members were really pointed that they want the JTA board to really be out front of this and be really asking tough questions out in the open, not behind closed doors, so that there is a diversity of opinion. People don't feel like they're hesitant to ask tough questions in the public meetings. We'll see if that happens. That's not really been the dynamic at JTA board meetings to date.
Well, JTA has made it clear that the city, Nikesha, doesn't really have any say. I mean, the JTA sent this list of responses to, I guess, in response to some questions that Councilmember Rory Diamond had fashioned about, benchmarks and what they might do if it doesn't appear to be working, and, what role the city had in ever putting the brakes on it. And multiple times, the response was basically, you all don't have any, role in this. This is JTA's project. It is our job to monitor it. It's our job to determine if it's going in the correct direction. And you're free to look at our paperwork and our procurement process and our audits, but basically it's on us, not you.
I think that's a very arrogant position to have, to say that the city doesn't have any oversight or any review authority over whether or not the Jacksonville, as in the city of Jacksonville's Transportation Authority, is wasting the taxpayers' money. That's how arrogant of you, how audacious. I understand in larger context that to replace the Skyway, which was failing for years, that it used to be paid and then it went free and no one was really riding it, and unhoused people may have used it for shelter in the cold or in the heat, that you wanted to do something different and create this innovation corridor. And I can also understand that as we continue to try to build up downtown Jacksonville with the rivers, the new park that's about to open in the old landing area, we're going to have the Four Seasons and this whole Lot J Entertainment District area, that there is a potential for more people to come downtown and to use the Navy. But we're not there yet, and it looks like you're wasting money.
That was a huge topic at the Doge conversation.
And so, like, two things can be true at once. This could be a great thing for the city of Jacksonville when we have the ridership numbers and the population in downtown Jacksonville that the entire city has been working toward for all of the 14, 15 years I've lived here and beyond that.
Longer. Yeah.
It's downtown Jacksonville has been a conversation about what to do to bring the people here and get it to be a population dense area. The Navy can absolutely be a solution once that happens. But right now that's not happening. So let's look at ways that we can stop wasting people's money, because it's not like that we don't have highways and roads in neighborhoods that need to be paved and curbs that need to be built and bike lanes that need to be painted. Like, we can do two things at the same time.
Or a regular bus route that already runs the same route as
exactly.
I'm going to note that Nikesha and Rory Diamond are rolling on the same track on this.
Oh,
Because
Lord.
he has basically said,
one of the things I think it's important for people to understand who may not, because this is really nuanced and it's been my life for a long time, is so there's 3 phases to the project. The first phase is the Bay Street Innovation Corridor that's now been rebranded as the Navy, right? That is its own bucket. It's a combination, theoretically, of local, state, and federal money. They've gotten federal reimbursement. To my understanding, though, Nat Ford said differently at the podium, my understanding is there's been no reimbursement at the state level. And then the board was like, sure, we'll throw an extra $50 million local money at this project in case it runs over. So that's its own thing. But phase 2, which is the conversion of the Skyway, which is the big, hefty lift, that is all local money. Like, that is 6 cents every time you go and fill up. That's the local option gas tax. And so that, I think, is what Doge is really honing in on, is like, this is money that's all Duval taxpayers or people who are in Duval. Is this really worth it? And what's interesting is in 2021, when they passed the local option gas tax, they had all these really nice renderings. But to date, we still don't even have a 30% PD&E. Like, we still don't know what it's actually going to look like.
wait, say that again, a PD&E. What are you saying?
Like we have renderings, but we don't have anything substantial on what that actual project is going to look like, what it's going to cost, how it's going to happen.
Plans.
Yeah. And like, they're still doing research. They rolled back the first PD&E, the first RFP, and then they rebid it to include an option that says maybe we don't even build it at all. And they're still trying to figure it out. But as the taxpayer, we've already written the check.
Yeah. So they have renderings, but they're still soliciting, with RFP being a request for proposal, to actual design firms to design what this is going to look like. So they have no idea.
But they already have been promised the money, which is wild to me.
And even Nat Ford himself has said that the Skyway, elevated Skyway track has about 25 years left of usable life, which, by the time that program is designed and built out, how many more years will have gone by and it's taken down on that elevated roadways, lifespan.
I mean, by their schedule, it would suggest that maybe there would be about 15 years left of its life by the time that is in place. I mean, 10 years down the road, about as optimistic as you can get for the build out of phase 2, right?
So the real question is, like, are you just throwing good money after bad?
So this project,
and also, who's going to write it?
I mean, I'll ask you,
Nobody writes
all of
this
this sits on, the history of the Skyway, which itself was considered, kind of a boondoggle. It never had the ridership anybody wanted. It was always, well, we can't, not do it because then we're going to owe back all of this money. We've already spent all this money. It's sunk costs. So this new project is really, inheriting all of that pressure, David. It is not able to kind of move beyond the legacy of the Skyway in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, the way I understood it back in 2021, what they wanted to do, if you can picture the Skyway and the elevated track, they would basically cut the top of it off and just leave the bottom column. And then you'd come back on the left behind columns and put new platforms in. And these new platforms would be wide enough, big enough for these rubber-tired vehicles to go on. Because right now you can't just run these rubber-tired vehicles on the track that's up there now. So when they say they're going to convert it, it's almost nearly a wholesale reconstruction of it. And I don't know what that would affect the stations. So the stations would stay or go, or if those also would be replaced. So
they don't
that's
even know.
why
It's
that's
not
why
even done.
Well, and there's question too about what kind of angle would be required to get a rubber vehicle up onto those tracks. They might need more right of way.
And then you'd have, so that in itself is expensive. Then you'd have to do ramps that would come from the elevated section down to the street. So that's an additional cost, additional space is needed.
Why not just
So
tear it
you know,
down?
it's a very expensive project. I mean, I've kind of always, my question has always been, if you believe this is a technology of the future, you believe these vehicles can run in mixed use traffic, why double down on rebuilding this fixed route? Why not just
That
tear
no one
it
rides
down
already.
And doesn't go anywhere
let
that
it
people
go?
really want to go. You still have to
Well,
walk a few
and the
blocks.
idea would be then you use some of this money you otherwise would spend on converting the elevated section to actually extend the routes into some of these neighborhoods sooner and tie it into Springfield, tie it into San Marco, tie it into Riverside. So I don't even know if that's an option. I've asked them a few times
That's
whether it
phase
is.
3. Phase 3 is the neighborhoods.
One
Right, but
question.
you could some of the 240 million could be spent on that rather than just rebuilding this existing structure in the same place where it is now.
Well, and here's the other part we haven't even talked about yet. Balfour Beatty, who is their software provider, is out. So at the end of the year, if they can't come to some agreement with some of the subcontractors.
This is the software provider that helps run the automated vehicle.
Right. They are the platform upon which Beep and Oxa, who are the autonomous technology providers, if you will, Balfour Beatty's done at the end of the year. So they're going to have to, there's going to be a lapse where the pseudo autonomous vehicles that still have a driver behind the wheel and have already run into a light pole on Bay Street will then just be regular Ford Transit vans with an actual driver for who knows how long until they can get the software up and running.
I want to get to the issue of hold on in a minute because that is part of this conversation. But we are talking with our media panel about the week's headlines. If you'd like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And of course, you can watch our live stream on the WJCT YouTube channel. We've got a call from Bradley in Riverside. Good morning, Bradley. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to ask, with the amount of money that we're spending, wouldn't it be more beneficial to, potentially forward-thinking as far as autonomous vehicles go? We could the city of Jacksonville could run like a micro Uber, buy 100 Teslas and run them out of downtown and have them run all the way through the city. And that would probably accommodate, 50% of the ridership at least for a quarter of the cost. Has anyone thought about the future of autonomous vehicles and how inexpensive the ridership's going to be? And is anyone going to ride that JTA if they can get downtown for $1 on a Tesla?
Bradley, thanks. It's funny because after the Skyway was built, there was always that comparison of, it would be cheaper to buy taxi cabs for everybody that has ever ridden this as opposed to actually build the facility and the infrastructure.
That's what Waymo's for. If you look at cities like Nashville, where I know it's going into effect in the new year, there are companies that do autonomous vehicles well and that have them on city streets and deploy them just as this caller mentioned, and it's a lot cheaper than what we're doing with the Navi and the Skyway. It seems to me that if JTA wanted all the smoke to stop, that they would stop trying to revive the Skyway that no one rides and no one uses and doesn't go anywhere, even with the potential innovations that it has, and think of a new way to innovate that doesn't break the bank or partner with companies that are already doing it
in other cities.
Other cities.
One of the things that was discussed at the Doge meeting was partly that this is it's entirely new. That this Nat Ford said this has never been done we're building this as we go. We are innovating,
which is something that's traditionally done in the private sector where you can afford to take that risk. Instead, we're innovating on the public dollar where we're seeing actual risk happening that's costing the taxpayer money.
Talk about hold on, though, because this is a project that has come to Jacksonville. They're moving their headquarters here. They're going to ultimately, presumably, provide these vehicles for JTA. And, both the JTA...
Not presumably. They've already signed the deal.
Yeah. But, as long as the vehicles have the software and all of that continues. But the mayor has also supported this. They're saying that it could be, over $1 billion in its lifetime in terms of its economic impact.
Yeah, so I mean, Holon is a German company, and they're currently based in Michigan, and part of the city worked with them to provide incentive deals to bring their manufacturing facility and their headquarters down here to Jacksonville. Nat Ford, CEO at JTA, and JTA officials have said that, look, there were other cities that were offering them more, like, hard dollar incentives to come down here, but the reason they came here was because this innovative U2C project is they want to work on it. They want to be they want to be the car that fuels that project.
Poland also got a really sweet incentive deal too, by the way.
Yeah, they did, and it was and I think the total initial investment is around $100 million, I believe, in the plant. The $1.8 million is economic impact over the life of the
or billion
billion. Yes, 1.8 billion over the life of the deal. Which those kind of economic impact studies, especially from the outset, they rely on future jobs numbers, the local economy, how much money the JTA is going to spend. It's a very nebulous kind of number that's being thrown around out there. It's hard to know if that's the actual amount of economic activity that will come from that project. Yeah. I also think too it's interesting to note that Roy Diamond, who's been kind of spearheading this from the DOGE committee, he was one of the original council members that voted against extending the local option gas tax back in 2021,
which is what was financing this project.
Phase 2. Yep.
Yeah, phase 2. He's actually suggested, he told us or this week that he's exploring filing legislation that would actually redirect that gas tax money to other transportation projects. That now it's hard to know if there's a lot of logistics to that, because there's an interlocal agreement between the city and JTA on how that money is spent. So that would have to be redrafted as part of the bill. But he's like, look, let's spend this money on road resurfacing, on road repair, more conventional types of public transit that's tried and true, like buses. And he does actually have some broader support on city council for this. Jimmy Peluso, who typically sits on the other side of issues from Roy Diamond, he attended the DOGE meeting, and he really questioned Nat Ford hard on, like, why aren't we exploring other forms of light rail or trolley services? Those, according to JTA, typically are a lot more expensive than what they're paying for the U2C program, but they're already being implemented in cities across the country, and they're and widely in use. So there's a lot of questioning going on.
In terms of, I just want to say we did reach out to JTA yesterday to see if they wanted to join this program or call into this program, and they declined. We have a couple of comments. One, Tom on Facebook saying that the Navy is a horrendous waste of money that basically replicates all the mistakes of the Skyway. Also a message from Michael saying, kind of comparing it from long ago to the deal between JEA and the offshore power systems, which was an effort to bring a company here that was going to build floating nuclear power plants. And it was a project that ended up with the subject of a grand jury investigation and not well, let's just say that. But I do want to ask, for Nat Ford, it can't be easy, especially when he's, says city doesn't have any authority on this. This is my, area of expertise and also my job, to be having people come in and be making, 11th hour suggestions. Why don't we do light rail? That is obviously not an easy thing to just sort of shift, or let's spend it on roads. It's not like people come to JSO when the murder rate's up and say, well, why don't we just take some of your money away and we'll go fund something else. It is a pressure that this leader is facing that cannot be easy from a managerial standpoint.
Y'all are all looking at me for the answer to this
I
question.
can respond.
I will say, I agree with you. I think that it is difficult to be in the hot seat in whatever capacity. It is tough to field questions like this, but that's his job. And he's worked in much larger markets. He and I overlapped in San Francisco when he was head of SFMTA. And he faced tough questions about the amount of money that they spent on their headquarters. And that is the position. That's the job description. And I get that that's hard, but that's what you're supposed to do. Also, like, you are the steward of hundreds of millions of public dollars. And if you can't sit there and coherently defend why you are spending this money, then we have a problem.
I just have one final question about the sort of the Doge environment, because you mentioned Jimmy Peluso was sort of siding, as Nikesha, with Rory Diamond
Bro
on
clock
this
is right
issue.
twice a day.
I know. Misery has strange bedfellows, eh?
Rory Diamond has been taking a hard line on this, but I was surprised to see that some of these other, kind of bulldogs on the Doge committee were maybe soft shoeing it a little bit. It did not seem, Raul Arias in particular.
Well, he changed his position from the meeting last week from the meeting before, which was interesting.
But he said basically, we shouldn't be looking at JTA to blame this. He actually said, quote, let's look at the Downtown Investment Authority. Let's talk to them to see why we don't have enough people downtown so JTA can do their job properly.
Well, because the way that Ford was defending the low ridership numbers, right? Because initially they promised, though FTA years ago was like, your estimates are going to be wrong. They're way too high. 250 to 280 people a day was what they anticipated would be riding this. In his defense, Ford said, there aren't 250 to 280 people downtown that need a ride because we are ahead of the development. We are forward thinking. We are getting ahead of the Four Seasons, ahead of the Mosh, ahead of the shipyards.
Yeah.
And so that was his defense. And that was what Raul Arias was saying. Like, I think he even said, quote, you're killing it at one point to Nat Ford, and was like, and was like, we can't blame you for your low ridership numbers if the people aren't there.
And no one is denying that mass transportation in Jacksonville is needed. No one is also denying that there needs to be a concentrated effort to have the population required of mass transit living in downtown Jacksonville. For example, I'm going to the Brandy and Monica concert next month in Jacksonville at the amphitheater or whatever. I would love to take the Navy.
No, it doesn't run at that time.
Point.
So what am I going to do? I'm going to drive my car and I'm going to pay to park, right? Yeah. It doesn't run at that time. Make it make sense.
Or during Jaguars games.
Well, they can't. They can't. Have you been behind it during rush hour?
Yeah, it doesn't move sometimes.
It makes a mess. Yeah.
We are going to have to move on because we got a lot of
You
topics.
got to make it make sense for the people who are here. And right now it doesn't.
Can I just say one other thing about Holon?
Yes.
I promise. Sorry, I will not usurp the conversation. The thing about Holon is we have already signed an agreement with this German company for these. They're like really awesome looking vehicles. I have to give them that. The problem is they're not allowed to be on the roads right now because in the United States, there is not a fully autonomous vehicle for mass transit that has been approved by the National Highway Transportation Safety Board, NHTSA. Yeah. They've applied for a waiver. I think it was more than a year ago. It has not been approved. And if you go and you look at all of the comments, it's really interesting. A lot of local, like Miller Electric has written in favor of it. The Civic Council has written in favor of it. The wording is all very similar in all of these people who have weighed in on the public comment thing. But we have already committed more local money to a company that we're going to buy vehicles that possibly wouldn't even be allowed to run.
Right.
And will they actually come here and build the plant if there's any uncertainty that they're not going to get the
waiver?
waiver?
If they don't get that waiver, that's the big question.
Right. I just want to read one quick comment from James. He said, I've never felt wholly confident in the visionary thinking behind JTA's system. Like many Jacksonville agencies, they have a board that is very compliant and not rigorously strategic or strategically rigorous. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to Emily Turner, Nikesha Williams, Mike Mendenhall, and David Bauerlein about the week's headlines. You can join our conversation on air at 904-549-2937. You can email questions or comments to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org, or you can reach out on Facebook, Instagram, or X at FCC On Air. Okay, I want to move on now to local impacts of the shutdown, whether that's SNAP benefits that have disappeared or flights that are possibly going to be delayed. This week, there was a lot of local, I think, very heartening community support, whether it was the mayor and some city officials working with the faith community and some nonprofits to try to provide a safety net. The Pagic firm offered up, $100,000 to help kind of provide money through the Riverside Arts Market for people who are on SNAP but can't get money.
JEA has changed their cutoff for non-payment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not doing late fees anymore.
Right. So there has been, I think, a very positive community response, but, there is a reality, David, that, there are people as we move into the holiday season, whether it is food or flights, there are people that are going to be feeling these impacts.
Yeah, obviously, federal employees have already felt it if they're not getting paid, and this is a pretty big federal workforce in Jacksonville. And then you add on to it the fact that SNAP benefits are going to be, if not eliminated, cut back. A lot of uncertainty about that. And there's some pretty striking figures that we learned about this week in terms of the number of people. There's like 57,000 households, about 160,000 people in Duval County who rely on SNAP.
1 out of every 14 people.
Right, exactly. And then and like 8 of every 10 are seniors or children. So it's a vulnerable population. So that's starting to kick in. It has been heartening to see the community response, but that's a really big gap to fill if this shutdown continues on. Today, we're going to start to see some of the impacts of the flights, which are not going to be. There's 40 airports that they cut 10% of the flights. Jacksonville International Airport is not one of those 40, but we all know that if you want to fly anywhere out of Jacksonville, you're probably flying through one of these airports. It is
like
being
Atlanta.
cut back, like
Yeah.
Atlanta or Dallas, Fort Worth. So it's going to have a ripple effect, obviously. So it's, you're starting, the pain is spreading from this shutdown. There doesn't seem to be any breakthrough up in Washington at this point to resolve it.
The air traffic control issue has been a big pressure in previous shutdowns. We pulled a map this morning from FlightAware where they do their misery map, and this morning it was looking not too bad so far. I mean, in terms of, a couple hundred delays, 100 and whatever that says on the screen there, 140 cancellations roughly. So, but there are way more people, Mike, that are going to be missing food benefits. I mean, these are benefits that on average give a household $194 a month. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there.
No, and I mean, and like you mentioned, the city has created this Duval Care Coalition that's trying to bring these nonprofits together. Farmers markets are stepping up. It's interesting too if you look at the numbers. I mean, 50% of the SNAP beneficiaries are in about 28 neighborhoods here in Jacksonville. So there are definitely, and there's definitely like pockets of the community that are going to be affected more than others as well. And so but it's like you said, it's heartening to see. I think there was also a bill that's going through City Council as well that's going to try to provide some regulatory relief for nonprofits that get grant assistance from the city as well. So you are seeing a lot of
St. Johns County just passed, I think it was $200,000 they took out of their reserves to help supplement food banks down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, Nikesha, the reality is that for every SNAP, for every meal that is provided by SNAP by a food bank, there's 9 meals essentially provided by SNAP, and so these communities that provide food benefits have said there's just no way of closing that gap. This is such a difference in scale.
The federal government is okay with letting people starve. Let's call a spade a spade. The federal government is okay with letting people starve, and local governments, local nonprofits, churches, mutual aid societies, neighbors are having to fill the gap for the people in need. My church on Sunday did a food drive and a call out, and the pastor said every person that is a member of this church or attends needs to come back with 20 cans today. I left service at 9 a.m. I went to the grocery store. I went back and I was in a line of cars to drop off canned goods so that we could meet the need of the people that are supposed to receive SNAP benefits but are not due to the government shutdown. And people are so quick to say, well, the government needs to reopen. So, okay, what's at stake when the government needs to reopen? Okay, you get your SNAP benefits back, but then if you have any type of public health care, your health benefits are going to get cut and they're going to double. So pick your poison. Do you want health care or do you want food?
Yeah, and these SNAP cuts, I mean, are a little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come because we know that the program itself is being cut way
also
back.
being cut.
Yeah.
Like if we want to blame it on the Democrats, okay, let's say the Democrats say we're going to come and we're going to vote for this bill that we don't agree with and open the government again. Your health care benefits, your public health care benefits, whether it's the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, or your Medicaid benefits or your Medicare benefits are going to be cut. SNAP is also going to be cut. So pick your poison.
It's really interesting because I think there's such a disconnect between what happens in Washington. Like to so many people in their regular life, this is like this theoretical thing that you see on national news, and like we'll throw a story in there about whatever's happening in Washington, but it kind of doesn't affect your day-to-day life in a way that people notice and
Unless
feel.
it does.
And now it does. That's what I'm saying. Now, if you're getting on a plane, if you need assistance, when you're paying your copay, now people are like, ooh.
I flew back from New York 3 weeks ago because I was doing some traveling for my book stuff. New York is very busy. I was at JFK. My flight, I boarded on time, and then I sat on the tarmac on the plane for an hour and 15 minutes because there are not enough air traffic controllers to get the air traffic out of New York to come back home to Jacksonville. So no, I don't feel it when I fly out of Jacksonville, but if I have a layover in Atlanta, my layover could be delayed 3-4 hours. Who knows?
And you're also coming up on a very busy holiday
Right,
season.
we're about to come up on the Thanksgiving season. People are talking about, oh, well, Amazon said, their Thanksgiving meal is $24. Walmart's meal is $21. But do you have that extra $21 to spare to make this feast when you don't have food day to day to day?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about, what's today? Today's Friday. We're talking about meals tomorrow, not meals in 3 weeks.
Right. We've got a comment from the events manager for the city of Jacksonville, West Reed. He said, FYI, parking for Daly's Place concerts is free at Lot J. This is referencing the Brandy and Monica concert. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
What questions do I have that I need to have answered? I'd just like to a blanket shout out. Yeah.
We also have a call from Sally in Springfield. Good morning, Sally. Go ahead.
Good morning. I just wanted to point out it is heartening that nonprofits and churches are stepping in. It takes a village, and the village includes the federal government. And I just read that courts ordered Donald Trump's administration to pay out on SNAP, and they are appealing it. So they are digging their feet in on this important benefit that Americans need. I just find that appalling.
Thanks, Sally. David, I'm curious your thoughts. I mean, it is perhaps going to get harder for the blame game to be, this is because the Democrats have forced this, through the shutdown, when the appeals process is kind of pushing back on these orders. Simultaneously, the Trump administration is essentially challenging the order to pay these SNAP benefits in full.
Yeah, they're slow walking it. And so basically then there's still this big uncertainty over the SNAP benefits. How much will people get? It is a pressure point, no doubt. I mean, if you're a representative in Congress and, you're hearing from people that, their people are facing this real dire need for putting food on the table. That's a real basic necessity. I think this is the first time since 1964 when this program under different names was first started that it's ever been used, curtailed, cut back during a government shutdown. So this is a new dynamic to it.
It's intentional cruelty by an administration that doesn't care. You have the executive branch, both chambers of the legislature, and the Supreme Court. You can't get your agenda passed. That's a problem for you, not the Democrats who are actually trying to save programs that actually help people.
And you're also seeing the Trump administration, or President Trump in particular, trying to put pressure on his own party in the Senate to say, well, just get rid of the Senate filibuster so you don't even have to negotiate with Democrats, which kind of pushes, further to that point that the party in power is the one that actually could control this and stop it if they wanted to.
But if they get rid of the Senate filibuster and change the rules for the Republican Party, they are then afraid that down the line, come 2026 or 2028, if anything changes or flips, now the Democrats have that party. And you don't want people to have power, because this is what this is really about.
No, I mean, our whole government is based on checks and balances, right? Like, there's a reason these
there are no
filibusters
checks.
exist.
There are no checks at this moment. There is a powerful president who has had executive overreach backed up by the courts, and then whenever he is checked by another branch, he then appeals that decision. And it keeps being appealed to expand presidential powers. So now, what checks are in place? The only check that we've seen has been at the local level in the elections on Tuesday. This is about power. If you get rid of the Senate filibuster to go ahead and pass your agenda, then that power is now available to any other administration that comes behind this president, be they a Republican or not. He knows exactly what he's doing. He wants to blame someone, and he does not want that blame to rest at his feet, while people who voted for him as well are suffering. It's about power. It's intentional cruelty. It's intentional harm. And people are finally waking up to see, oh, wow, this affects me too.
I want to move on to talk a little bit about the school system because the most recent, this expansion of charter schools has been impacting the local district, is anticipated to begin impacting the local school district. And for the first time, I feel like we have heard the Duval County School Superintendent sort of speak out about the need to perhaps rein in the push towards school choice or the push towards charters. He basically said at a meeting that he is, that there's conversations that are going to be happening in Tallahassee.
Bernier said this?
Mm-hmm. And that this is, perhaps a time for not necessarily retrenching, but just rethinking some of the decisions. He said, quote, "You have enrollment issues, and it's not just about taking kids from charters. There's less kids coming." He said, "All these things are starting to pile on your superintendent," and he's trying to figure out a way to navigate through this. So, he's recognizing those pressures. They're not necessarily going away anytime soon, but there does seem to be, David, some interest, not just by the Duval County School Board, but by, school districts around the state in response to this expansion of the Schools of Hope program.
Yeah, his argument would be, there's probably unintended consequences lawmakers didn't think about, and we want them to look back at what those unintended consequences might be. And it's kind of the distinction between you have a completely empty school building and providing that for a charter school versus having a half-empty school building and providing that for a charter school where the school boards, the charter school's not paying for utilities, not paying rent, and, basically then how that affects overall the ability of the school district then to convince families to come back to those school buildings and fill them back up. So, it does create even more of a pressure on the public school system, traditional public schools versus charter schools, to be able to keep the students they have and ultimately grow that enrollment. I mean, that was one of the arguments when they passed the half-cent sales tax to redo all these schools, build schools, replace aging schools, upgrade them, was that then you're going to have families give a second look to the traditional public schools and decide they want to come back. So there's a lot of countermeasures there. No, so obviously they want the state legislature to take a look at that. I don't think they've got a real concrete plan for what they want changed, but it is interesting that the school superintendent is saying, look, puts a new pressure on us that really hurts our ability to continue to educate through the traditional public school system.
It's tough to thread, though. I mean, because there is so much widespread support for school choice. There's so much political support for charter schools, vouchers, Emily. It's not easy for a superintendent, especially of a district where the majority of the school board members are sort of aligned with that movement or supporters of that movement.
You can't put the cat back in the bag. Like at this point, you've created the situation with school choice, and so many people have taken advantage of it. To roll that back would be a whole nightmare. And it's interesting because I had Paul Brenner, who's running for governor, on my show this week in the 904 last week, and we had a conversation. I think school choice is going to be a centerpiece, or should be anyway, for the gubernatorial debates over the next year. Because I saw this play out when I was in California between charter schools and public schools and what you do. I mean, people are choosing, they want to make decisions for their kids. In Duval County, it is increasingly not DCPS, and they're getting a decreasing amount of money. Now, whether that's a great choice or not, I don't know. But DCPS has seen the writing on the wall. They've created a position for someone who's basically his whole job is to try and keep kids in the public school system, lure people back to DCPS, like showcase, their trades programs, which are actually pretty amazing, in a way that maybe people don't think about DCPS in this way, to reframe it, to try and just stem the tide, the exodus that's happening.
Just one more piece of pushback in the argument about paid parking at Daly's Place.
Are we back to this?
We got
I love everyone trying to help me with my concert plan.
A note from David, just so you know, noting that there is a ticket surcharge that is applied to parking that is included in the cost of the ticket, and that applies to people whether or not they're taking an Uber or driving. So
I wish the Navy was running when I needed it.
Yeah, well,
if you could fit on it, there's only like 8 seats.
Just very, very briefly, it sounds like the Trump administration, which had been perhaps opening some offshore development for oil, we said we would get to it. We really don't have time to get to it. But it is something that local lawmakers, including our Senator Rick Scott, has pushed back on. So we're just going to have to kind of keep an eye on that. Emily Turner, David Bauerlein, Nikesha Williams, Mike Mendenhall, thank you so much for being here. You guys are terrific.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right. We'll be back in just a minute with the Garden Club of Mandarin.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Car accidents happen too often for your family to go unprotected. Uninsured motorist insurance. When you need it, will you have it?
More at terrellhoganlaw.com. Ponte Vedra Concert Hall presents History That Doesn't Suck with Professor Greg Jackson, a night of American history telling, live music, and multimedia. Saturday, November 8th at 8 p.m. Tickets and information available at pvconcerthall.com.
On the next Florida Roundup, we should know who will be the next governor of Florida in 1 year. Election Day 2026 is coming. On the next program, we'll speak with as many of the major party candidates for governor as we can. What will decide your vote? Is it about a political party, a personality, or policies? Let us know by emailing radio@thefloridaroundup.org. radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Tom Hudson. Then join us Friday noon until 1.
The White House asked Congress to pull back federal funding for public media that had already been approved, and Congress has gone along. We want you to know that NPR and this station remain committed to informing the public, increasing your understanding of the world, and hopefully enriching your life in other ways. But without federal funding, we're relying on your support now more than ever. Please make your gift to this station today. Here's how, and thank you.
Visit wjct.org/sustain and thank you.
Democrats win big in the first election of President Trump's second term.
If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him.
On the next Friday News Roundup, what are Democrats learning from Tuesday's blue sweep? Plus, the government shutdown is now the longest in history, and safety net programs are falling away. We'll get to all of it next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, from dirt roads and citrus groves to modern-day Mandarin, the Garden Club of Mandarin is celebrating 80 years of beautification. Here to tell us about it is Marvine Thompson, the club's president. Good morning, Marvine.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. We're also joined by the group's first vice president, Sandra Varner. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning. Thank you.
And Jesse Hilliard, the circle leader for the Mandarin Garden Club. Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
So, first of all, congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Marvine, can you give us just a brief background on the group's founding?
Our garden club was founded in 1945. It was originally part of the Mandarin Community Club. It was a beautification committee. And when the ladies were looking for a building to have their own, they had a flood back in that day, and they looked for a property to build their own building to start their own garden club to help the beautification of the Mandarin area.
Yeah.
And it's still standing. The building's still standing to this day, 80 years later. And we're still doing beautification projects. We have beautiful gardens. And we all love it there. We just love it. Yeah.
Sandra, Mandarin has been a community that is sort of particularly focused on how it looks how it feels to live there. There's always been a lot of community interest, say, in preserving the trees of Mandarin. There's a lot of civic investment in just making and keeping the place looking nice. How has the Garden Club interacted with that or advanced that goal?
Over the years, the ladies helped maintain back in the 70s and 80s. The ladies helped maintain the roads and the medians along Mandarin Road. And we helped preserve the oak trees, especially, and trimming them and weeding the medians. So the ladies were very civic minded and very active, even though back then they wore dresses and gloves and hats and all of that. And it was so cute to look at the pictures, but they were very involved. They even had one time in the 70s where they adopted a road. They adopted part of San Jose Boulevard to maintain. So we're still trying and striving to do that now with the new people. We have a good group of people, and they're really excited about things to come in
Yeah.
our community.
Jesse, I guess you count as one of the new people.
I do.
Yes.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what appealed to you about joining the Garden Club, and what is about it it has kind of a current appeal.
Okay, the Garden Club for me was introduced by a close friend, and it's been just a great sense of community since joining 3 years ago, and it's just a wonderful place to be. There's so much to do. There's so many activities to get involved in, and it's just a sense of belonging and friendship and community. And
Do you have to come to the club with great gardening skills? Do you have to have a green thumb?
no, absolutely not. It's all walks of life, all levels of gardening. You don't have to know anything. You can know everything. We welcome everyone, and there's so many activities and events that we do that anyone can get involved in.
So what does the club do, Marvine, for people who aren't familiar or just aren't familiar with even the concept of a garden club? What is it? What do you do?
We do more than gardening. We have beautiful gardens. We have great people that keep our gardens up. Then they are beautiful. We also have activities. We have 4 different circles that meet 4 different times of the month. They have speakers about gardening, horticulture, any type of community involvement. We have sales. We have fundraisers during the year, that everyone is involved in. We raise funds. We have clothing sale. We have trash to treasure. We have plant sales, and we have crafty ladies. We have a craft circle that meets once a week, and that do goodie bags for Meals on Wheels every month, and we support the food bank in Mandarin.
The group itself and the building, was actually sort of a very strong movement by a couple of the women who at the time signed the mortgage on the building without their husbands knowing, which was a radical act at the time.
Correct. Yes.
How does that, just the identity of women and kind of their role, inform the work that you guys do, or just sort of the approach of the club? Sandra.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were talking to me, but that's fine. The idea of it, to think that 2 women went to the bank and signed a mortgage without their husbands even knowing it. They knew that they were interested in property and stuff. And one of their husbands was a realtor. He's still here, Sam Foles. He's a realtor in the area. And he will be joining us at our 80th anniversary. But they were just determined and loved the property and loved their community so much. They wanted to get things started, and, why not? And I think that was the attitude they probably had. Let's just do it. And we still are doing that same mentality. We're always striving to make things better in our gardens and for the community. And we're in the process now of doing several different projects. So women's determination, I think, has a lot to do with it. Although now, currently, we do have some men that are working in our gardens, and we enjoy that.
Well, all welcome. The Mandarin Garden
Yes.
Club celebrates its 80th anniversary on Sunday, November 2nd from 2 to 4. You can find a link on our
November 9th.
website.
November 9th.
Excuse me, November 9th, 2 to 4. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to our program. If you have comments or suggestions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. Join us Monday when we sit down with a local urban farmer to talk about pressures on community gardens. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com.
This is WJCT News